After the Budokai Tenkaichi series, they started to get a couple different ideas, What if instead of just being able to go this way and that way, we can go this way and that way, and not just that, but this way, and all sorts of diagonal 360-degree movement in the 3D arena environment that we can move around with destructible things to blow up if you fire too many things in, or punch somebody really hard that they go flying through. What if we made destructible environments? What if we made a big sandbox fighting game instead of just a typical fighting game like the Budokai games were? What if we did that? Well, they did do that, and we have Budokai Tenkaichi, the experiment for this idea. Now, being the experiment, there's a lot of things in Budokai Tenkaichi that they pull from Budokai. One of the main things being the soundtrack. The soundtrack for Budokai Tenkaichi is Kenji Yamamoto's soundtrack, pulled directly from the Budokai trilogy. So you're fighting through all your various levels, and you hear the same music playing as the Budokai games. There's no new music from my knowledge. It's just recycled Kenji Yamamoto stuff, which I don't understand why they did this. I really don't. But it does have a very fun opening. That's very good. It's like one of the best openings in the franchise, and it still stands up today. You can look it up if you want. Go ahead, do it. It's really fun. Now, in regards to does Hironobu Kageyama do the opening for Tenkaichi, I don't know. Most of the time, usually, when we get a localized release, they want to pull out the Japanese voice because back in like the 90s and early 2000s, the Japanese language was scary to Americans. It was very scary. So anything that had Japanese vocals, songs, they wanted to rip it out because it was scary. It's like they're speaking in moon speak. They're speaking in a language. It's not English. People are going to be terrified of this. What are they going to be saying? We can't just put subtitles. They can't read. We have to get rid of the Japanese language. So they got rid of all of that and put in usually like an instrumental. Like in the Budokai trilogy, they put in an instrumental to the song in there, or when it's Budokai 1, they put Rock the Dragon in instead of Chala. It's Rock the Dragon, because Rock the Dragon at least is in English, so people aren't scared of the English language in America at the very least, so they kept that one in. And so maybe that's what happened. Maybe there is a Japanese version of Hironobu Kageyama doing the Budokai Tenkaichi intro that I just haven't taken the time to go look up. If you'd like to do that, you can go right ahead and do that. Let's look at the cover here. We have the big four here. We have Goku, Future Trunks, Piccolo, and Vegeta. Unfortunately, Gohan is not on the front cover, but we do have a new arrival to this franchise, and that is Janemba. Well, Janemba was in Infinite World. Tenkaichi 1 came out before Infinite World did. So this is technically Janemba's debut as a playable fighter character. And of course we have Broly, who debuted in Budokai 3. Let's look at the back here and look at all that juicy stuff. Back in the forever ago, long time ago, ages of physical magazines, my first introduction to Tenkaichi was in a GamePro magazine. You remember GamePro magazines? I still have a huge stack of about a decade's worth of GamePro magazines in my closet somewhere. I just don't feel like going to dig to look for them and find the exact magazine. That would probably take a very long time, and I don't want to do that. But if I wanted to do that, I would probably pull out a magazine at this point that has Dragon Ball stuff on it, flip to a page with the Dragon Ball Tenkaichi Budokai advertisement on it, and say, hey, this is how I remember, this is where I was introduced to it, and this is what I remember seeing. So you could imagine that's what I would do at this point if I weren't if I were to show the magazine that I have. That would be what I would do. When we look at the back here, we see Piccolo dodging a blast, flying to the left or the right, showing 3D movements, totally destructible 3D environments. Battle in the air, on land, and even underwater. And that's pretty fun. That was pretty fun to do. The ultimate Dragon Ball Z Dragon Ball GT fighting game. Well, it's not exactly Dragon Ball GT fighting game, because there are a lot of Dragon Ball GT characters that they did leave out. And they have continued to leave out a bunch of Dragon Ball GT characters, so whenever they say GT, they really just mean the Super Saiyan 4s and Omega Shenron. Nay, there's your GT. That's all you get. Okay, fine, you can have Super 17 and Super Baby Vegeta. But that's it, that's all you get. What about GT Trunks? Nah, you don't need him. What about Pan? Nah, you don't need her. What about GT Goku? Kid GT Goku? Yeah, you don't need him. GT Vegeta? You don't need him. GT Gohan? You don't need him. GT Goten? You don't need him. Majub? Oob? You don't need him. Oh, you get him in the sequel. How about the other Shadow Dragons outside of Sin Shenron? You know, like Nova Shenron, Ice Shenron, Haze Shenron, all those other guys. Are we gonna get? No, you don't need any of those guys. What about the Parapar? No, you don't need any of those guys. What about General Rildo? Nah, you don't need him. So technically, when they say Dragon Ball GT fighting game, and usually whenever they say this in the future, they really just mean Baby Vegeta, Super 17, and Omega Shenron. Everybody else isn't important. Oh, and the GT, Super Saiyan 4s. That's it. Nobody else is really important. Majub and Pan sometimes get lucky, and Kid GT Goku sometimes get lucky and get shoved into a game as an afterthought or something. But normally, everybody else ain't getting none. You ain't getting none. You ain't getting none. Look. Nameless Frieza's soldier. Just Frieza's soldier. He has no name. He's just called Frieza's soldier. Can be picked and fought and played as in Tenkaichi 3 and Sparking Zero. You can play as a nameless Frieza soldier. And this nameless Frieza soldier, his entire moveset is made up. Like, we never really see this Frieza soldier do anything. So everything that he's done was just made up on the spot for that game. And we think to ourselves, you know, while we technically haven't seen GT Gohan, GT Trunks, and GT Goten fight all that much, I think it's a little bit too hard. It's too hard to make a 3D model for that character and have them fight with movesets that we know they would know, like the Kamehameha for Gohan and Goten. They probably know that move. Maybe a Ki Blast volley for Gohan. That seems like a logical move. The burning attack for Trunks. It seems like a logical move. Yeah, we could probably do that and be very easy to do that and add these characters into the game. That is exactly why we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it for the sequel. We're not going to do it for Tenkaichi 3. We're not going to do it for Sparking Zero. So it's just too easy to do. That's why we're not going to do it. So I think this Dragon Ball GT thing is a little bit misleading, and it's going to be misleading for the future releases as well. But everybody says, oh, nobody cares about the Para. I care about the Para brothers. You know, I like them. You know, they're pretty funny. And funny is something that fans of this franchise seem to have forgotten. You know, funny. Akira Toriyama is funny. His manga is funny. He started as a gag mangaka. You know, what does that mean? Gag. You know, G-A-G. It doesn't mean shove a sock in your mouth until you choke. It means have a chortle. Have a chuckle. Snicker a little bit. Ha 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 ha. Hee 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 hee. Ho 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 ho. And look at it. And sometimes, hoo 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 hoo. You know, everybody's got that laugh, you know. And they look at something and there's something crazy's going on. Oolong transforms into a giant mechanized robot holding a bowl of ramen and fighting Kid Goku with giant chopsticks. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. Okay? So the Para brothers make complete sense for this universe, in the idea, in the vein of Akira Toriyama. Something funny. You want something completely serious, punchy, fighty. That is something that is antithetical to what Akira Toriyama originally did. So in a way, you're not a fan of Akira Toriyama. You're a fan of something completely commercialized and corporatized and made completely different from what Akira Toriyama originally created. So can you really call yourself a fan of Dragon Ball, or just a fan of the commercialized thing that got away from the original creator? Something to think about. Either way, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi is mostly Dragon Ball Z with a splattering of GT characters. A little bit more of more splatter than Budokai 3 had, admittedly. We get to have Android Super 17 and Super Baby Vegeta for once. So that's 2 extra GT characters that we did not normally get. And so that's very fun to have characters like that. We get to do all sorts of cool things. What about the Supreme Kai? I don't think he's in this one. I think he's only in the sequels. He was in Budokai 3. I don't think he was in Infinite World, but he was in the Tenkaichi 2 and 3. So there, you could use the Supreme Kai there. You could use Kabito Kai there. And, Supreme Kai's not in Sparking Zero, because it would be too easy to make a moveset for him. It would be too easy, because you see, all they would really have to do is pull up Tenkaichi 3, right? They pull up Tenkaichi 3, and they look at Supreme Kai's moveset, his punching animations, his ki blast animations, his special attack animations, and all they would have to do is copy that. They would just copy that moveset. They just even do the exact detail in their new engine. They just copy the moveset, copy the animation, and then port it over. And it might take a couple weeks or something like that. Some low-paying, nameless developer would probably be in charge of doing that. It'd probably take a couple weeks, but then they would be able to put them in, and it would be very easy. That's why they didn't do it, because it was easy. And something that makes the fans happy tends to not really be in the best interests. You see, making the fans happy tends to promote increased sales. And increased sales is antithetical to the business marketing strategy. You see, we have to piss people off. We have to lower sales. That's the business model. And I can't keep up this sarcastic talking point. It hurts me to keep this up. It hurts me to keep saying this, because it's... And I keep going off topic and ranting about things. What are the good things about Budokai Tenkaichi? Well, it's the first one of its kind. That's the good thing about it, and it's very fun to play in it until the sequels came out, in which case this is completely irrelevant after that. Once Tenkaichi 2 came out, there was absolutely no reason to play Tenkaichi 1. None at all. Tenkaichi 2 had the entire roster that Tenkaichi had, but it had a bunch more characters. And, that's what we like. You see, back in the 2000s, they had brains. And back in the 2000s, brains were used. You see, back in the day, using a brain was, it involved thinking and anticipating audience desires, anticipating what the people wanted, and we often would look at what the audience would say they loved about the game, and they'd go, oh, we love this big, huge cast of characters, I hope they come back in the sequel. And some bigwig, big brain person, he has a brain, and he used it. He read the words on that comment, email, or whatever, fan mail, or whatever. He read the words, and he go like, in the sequel, I think we should put all of the characters that we had in the previous game, we should put it all in the sequel. Put them all in there, and add about 20 to 30 more. That's all we really need to do. We just update the environments, get some new music, and do a story mode. Probably copy a lot of the stuff from the first game, but we had a couple more fights. And we had some random stuff that nobody would ever thought would be in the game, like Grandpa Gohan and Yajirobe. Nobody would ever think that we would ever add these characters, and nobody would ever... They wouldn't even hate us if we didn't add Yajirobe or Grandpa Gohan in. So we're gonna do that, and the fans are gonna like it. And surprisingly enough, the fans did like it. They did. They liked Yajirobe. They liked Grandpa Gohan. They liked the idea of moving everybody that was in the previous game into the next game. So that was one of the strengths of Budokai Tenkaichi. Unfortunately, that big brain suffered a brain fart. You see, there was a massive brain fart in the bigwig brain people when they were making this game. They would go like, Budokai 3 is such a great game, it's such an awesome game, this huge cast of characters. Let's port everybody except for Kid Oob into this game, into the Supreme Kai. Let's port everybody except Kid Oob. And then one of the other, a low-level, a mid-level business executive, he raises his hand, he points his hand up like this, hello, Mr. Businessman guy, you're forgetting Kid Oob. And he gets fired for bringing up Kid Oob. You see, he gets fired for that because... and he gets fired for that because Kid Oob was not in this game, and I don't know why. And it just doesn't make sense. You know, if you're going to port everybody from Budokai 3 into Tenkaichi, why didn't you use Kid Oob, you know? And it's like, it's a thought that I keep having with every single Sandbox big super mega max roster. Keep expanding the roster, and you keep thinking, well, is this the game they're gonna bring Kid Oob back in? No, it's not. How about this next one? No. How about Tenkaichi 3? It's the biggest roster ever. They have the frickin' Pilaf machine in Tenkaichi 3. Is Kid Oob coming back? Nope. Sparking Zero? Is Kid Oob coming back? It doesn't even have the Pilaf machine. Don't be crazy! Come on! Kid Oob, he doesn't have a moveset. Frieza Soldier doesn't have a moveset! And you gave him one! But yeah, Budokai Tenkaichi is a very fun game. When I played this game as a kid, I played it more than Budokai 3. It was a lot easier to understand, and I eventually became so good at it that I could beat fights on the hardest difficulties with ease. And it was very fun. I unlocked all the characters. As a kid, I would often use my memory to memorize every fight from the very earliest battles from the story in OG Dragon Ball, like Goku versus Krillin and all that stuff, and in the 22nd tournament and all that. And I would try to recreate every single story battle, even the ones that the story mode, because the story mode of this was pretty big, it's pretty hefty. It's not as hefty as Tenkaichi 2's, but it was pretty hefty. And I would try to add in all the story mode fights that worked in the game. I would go to verse mode and just make up my own fights to fill in the gaps. Like, this game didn't really have any OG Dragon Ball fights. So I would go grab Goku and Piccolo and do or Goku and Tien and do the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament. I have Goku and Tien fight for the semifinals, and then I would have Goku and Piccolo fight for the final match of the 23rd tournament, all the way leading up to the Raditz fight, the story mode. And anything that would happen in between that they didn't add, I would go into versus mode and just make up my own fights and all that stuff. It was pretty fun to do. It's very easy to entertain a kid. You know, it's very easy. It's very, very easy. Nowadays, all you got to do is just download Roblox, and they'll be busy forever. You'll never see them again. In fact, the only way you'll ever see them is when the power goes out or when the internet goes out, and they come up to you and say, "Mom, Dad, the internet's out, Roblox isn't working." And that's the only time you'll ever really get to see or hear from them, unless they're hungry, because Roblox can't feed them. So it's very easy to entertain a kid, and Budokai Tenkaichi was certainly very entertaining to me when I was younger. So it was pretty fun. It was a pretty fun game. But the sequel's just that much better because I just don't have too much else to say here. It works for what it was. It was a demo for the next big phase of line of arena fighters. And everything that came after this was just better. But this had to come out first to give you that introduction to this new fighting game. They wanted to see if it would sell, if it would work. And it did sell. And it did work.